Most people think destruction is loud. They imagine breakdowns as screaming matches, bottles shattered on floors, panic attacks in dark rooms. But Carl Jung knew better. He said the most dangerous damage doesn't happen in chaos. It happens in quiet repetition. In the things we do every day without thinking. In the habits that feel harmless, even responsible, but rot us from the inside. And the most dangerous one? Self-abandonment. The act of betraying your own truth to maintain peace, of silencing your voice to avoid conflict, of slowly, quietly, choosing who others want you to be, instead of who you are. It doesn't feel like destruction at first. It feels like compromise, like maturity, like doing the right thing. You tell yourself, it's not a big deal. I'll speak up next time. This isn't worth the fight. But next time doesn't come. And every time you swallow your truth, it sinks deeper, into your gut, into your posture, into your identity. Until one day, you look in the mirror and realize you've disappeared. You've become a shell, functional, likable, agreeable, and completely unknown to yourself. Jung believed this habit was psychological suicide, because the psyche can't thrive in contradiction. It can't grow when your outer life is a lie your inner life can't live with. So it begins to fracture, not all at once, but slowly. First, you lose clarity, then confidence, then connection, then you forget what you even wanted in the first place. You become tired, irritable, numb. Not because of trauma, but because of everything you never said, everything you never claimed, everything you never lived. That's what we'll expose in this video. The slow death of authenticity and the long road back to yourself. Self-abandonment doesn't begin in adulthood. It begins the first time you feel unsafe being fully yourself. Maybe it was when you cried and were told to stop being dramatic, when you questioned something and got punished for talking back, when your joy was too loud, your sadness too inconvenient, your truth too uncomfortable. So you learned. You learned how to edit yourself, to dial your emotions down to a level others could handle, to filter your words, to play nice, to be easy. And people rewarded you for it. They called you mature, good, well-behaved. But what they really meant was, you don't challenge me. You don't make me uncomfortable. You fit into the version of reality I can tolerate. Carl Jung warned us about this process, the splitting of the self. He said that when we bury parts of who we are to fit in, we don't just lose authenticity. We create a shadow, a reservoir of suppressed truth, rage, desire, fear. And the more we suppress, the more the shadow grows. Not out there, in here, in the way we get triggered by others, in the anxiety that creeps up in silence, in the sudden exhaustion after socializing, in the voice that whispers, I'm not living my life, I'm living theirs. And you carry it all with a smile, because people still think you're fine. They think you're calm, balanced, stable. But they don't know what it costs to perform peace. Because performing peace is exhausting. You're constantly negotiating yourself, asking, what part of me is allowed here? What version of me will get love, respect, safety? And in that constant negotiation, you forget the terms. You forget your truth. And eventually, you forget you. There's a moment, quiet, sudden, and brutal, when it hits you. You've done everything right. You've been kind, considerate, reliable. You've avoided conflict, kept your head down, kept the peace. And yet, you're not okay. You wake up in the middle of a life that doesn't feel like yours. The job, the friends, the relationship, all built on choices you made from fear, not freedom. And in that moment, there's no big breakdown, no dramatic realization, just a dull ache, a quiet knowing. This isn't me. Carl Jung called this the call of the self. It's the voice that rises when the mask slips, the whisper from the part of you that's been silenced for years, the version of you that never got a chance to live. You try to ignore it, distract yourself, work harder, be better, chase more validation, but it follows you into your sleep, into your relationships, into your body. Headaches, tight shoulders, a stomach that never quite settles. Because the body remembers. The body keeps score. And it knows when you're betraying yourself. You can't numb forever. At some point, the truth catches up. And when it does, it doesn't ask politely. It shows up as burnout, depression, anxiety, a quiet rage that simmers under every smile. That's not weakness. That's the cost of self-abandonment. And the bill always comes due. But here's the part no one tells you. This moment, this quiet unraveling, is not your end. It's your invitation to stop performing, to stop negotiating, to stop shrinking. And if you've made it this far, if any part of this feels like a mirror, you're not alone. There's a whole world of people waking up from the same performance. Subscribe and walk this path with us. Not for answers, but for honesty. Because this isn't about being fixed. It's about finally being real. Most people live their entire lives protecting a mask they don't even realize they're wearing. And the longer they wear it, the more the real self disappears. Not in one moment, but piece by piece. You start saying yes when you mean no, smiling when you're tired, nodding along when something feels wrong. You become agreeable, flexible, adaptable, a shapeshifter in your own life. Everyone likes you, but no one actually knows you, because you don't even know yourself anymore. Carl Jung didn't describe this as weakness. He called it a survival strategy. A brilliant one, but also a dangerous one. Because the ego, once it learns this trick, starts to depend on it. It becomes addicted to being perceived a certain way, to being the good one, to being liked. And in this addiction, you start sacrificing the parts of yourself that don't fit the image. The bold parts, the angry parts, the curious, wild, contradictory, inconvenient parts. You tuck them away, deep in the unconscious. Not because they're bad, but because they make people uncomfortable. Jung called this collection of rejected traits the shadow. And here's the problem. What you bury doesn't die. It waits. It grows. It feeds off your silence. And eventually, it starts leaking. Not through breakdowns, but through irritability, depression, emotional numbness, overreactions. You snap at small things. You feel drained around people. You sabotage intimacy, success, joy, and you don't know why. Because those shadow parts, they don't want to destroy you. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to come home. But they don't speak with words. They speak in patterns, in restlessness, in resistance, in that low, constant hum in your chest that says, something's off, something's missing. This isn't who I really am. And if you ignore it long enough, That hum turns into collapse. Not the kind people notice. The quiet kind. The kind that happens when you're surrounded by people and still feel invisible. When you're praised, but feel hollow. When you're living, but not alive. Healing doesn't start with a breakthrough. It starts with a breakdown of illusion, of pretending, of every false identity you built to survive. One day, you just stop. You stop smiling when you don't mean it. You stop saying yes out of fear. You stop showing up for people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared. And it feels strange, not empowering, not liberating, just unfamiliar. Because when you've spent your entire life building a version of yourself that's easy to digest, dropping the mask doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like loss. Like you're letting people down. Like you're losing your place in a world that only loved the edited version of you. But Carl Jung warned, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege requires discomfort. Because you will lose things. Comfort, approval, some relationships. People might say you've changed, that you've become distant, cold, selfish. But the truth is, you're just no longer available for your own abandonment. You're reclaiming your voice, the one you silenced to keep the peace. You're setting boundaries, not to push people away, but to stop losing pieces of yourself every time you say yes to what drains you. You're turning inward, not to isolate, but to reconnect. And it's hard, because no one claps when you say no for the first time. No one celebrates when you walk away from a room that doesn't hear you. But slowly, something shifts. You stop apologizing. You stop explaining. You stop trying to earn what you were never meant to beg for. And in that silence, the silence you used to fill with performance, you begin to hear your real voice again. The one that says, I miss me. Not the version of you others liked. The version you buried to survive. That version is still in there. Not broken. Not lost. Just waiting. When you stop abandoning yourself, the world doesn't change overnight. But you do. You stop rushing into conversations that drain you. You stop justifying your silence. You stop defending your truth like it's on trial. And in that stillness, the kind that used to terrify you, you start hearing a new rhythm. Not loud, not urgent, just steady. You walk slower. You speak less. But everything you say comes from a place that was once buried under layers of performance. And people notice. They can't always explain it, but they feel it. You're heavier now, not in sadness, but in substance. There's a stillness in your presence, a kind of quiet power that doesn't seek permission to exist. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, isn't about becoming someone new. It's about recovering the parts of you that were lost in your attempt to survive. The anger you buried, the dreams you dismissed, the instincts you overrode for acceptance. You pick them up, one by one, without guilt, without apology. And for the first time, you feel intact, not perfect, not healed, just real. You stop needing to explain your no. You stop chasing closure from people who can't even face themselves. You stop needing to be understood by those who only knew your mask. Because you're not performing anymore. You're living, fully, deliberately. And the world may not clap for that, but your nervous system will. Your inner child will. Your soul will. Because it remembers who you were, before the noise, before the pleasing, before the world told you to be small, agreeable, nice. And now you walk differently. Because you carry yourself, not the version others needed you to be. And that weight? That's not baggage. That's identity. You won't wake up one day fully healed. You won't cross a line and suddenly feel whole. But what will happen, quietly, without fanfare, is this. You'll stop negotiating your existence. You'll stop needing everyone to understand. You'll stop betraying yourself to belong. And that is where your life really begins. Carl Jung said the real battle is not between good and evil, but between the part of you that wants to stay comfortable and the part of you that's ready to evolve. And evolution doesn't always look like growth. Sometimes it looks like grief. Grieving the version of you that never got to live. Grieving the time you lost performing for love. Grieving the peace you sacrificed for acceptance. But on the other side of that grief is something sacred. Sovereignty. A way of existing that isn't dependent on being chosen, liked, or approved. You'll make decisions without fear. You'll walk away without guilt. You'll say no, and sleep well after. Not because you're cold, but because you're finally warm within. And the people who knew the mask? Some will fade. Some will resist. Some will never understand. But those who meet the real you, the one that speaks truth, that sets fire to performance, that holds still in silence, they'll stay. Not because they need something from you, but because they see something in you, something rare, something honest, something whole. So ask yourself, who are you? When no one's watching? Who are you? When no one's needing, pulling, demanding? Do you recognize the person you've become, or are you still performing? Because awareness is a door, but walking through it, that's a choice. And if you're ready for what comes after awareness, for the moment where behavior becomes dangerous, not just to others, but to yourself, then I'll see you in the next video.